And I think that there is that perception, in it with somebody who comes across as being really angry or mean or negative. The more they push people away, it just supports their perception that people are horrible. And so then, and I guess that's kind of like life. Like you go through life and you find things that support what you think, because what you think is what you know. It's like your perception is your reality. And so then it just supports like, I'm a horrible person. Nobody wants to be around me. I can't do relationships, and so then you just live your life like that. So yeah, you're right. Like breaking those almost irrational beliefs that you have. And learning about other people. Yes. Everyone's got a story. Yes.
Everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. And what's better on a podcast to have a fellow podcaster join you as an author. It's exciting. I love having podcasters on. It's so much fun to talk a little bit of podcasting, but also introduce you to another great podcast that you as a listener should go check out and follow. It's the Unguarded Mind podcast. And we'll put links in the show notes. You got to go listen, add it to your regular listening habits, because I think you're going to love the show. And Tami's here on the show today, talk about her author journey, a little bit about her podcast as well, but you can have a great time listening to Tami. Tami, welcome. Nice to have you on Living the Next Chapter.
Thank you. Hi, David. Nice to see you.
It's great. You're back from a quick trip to college town, and you're back home again. How was your trip?
It was great. I've got two kids in college. One's in New York and one's in Montana. So they are in two completely separate places. Yeah. Which makes vacationing very fun.
There you go. You get a little bit of variety there for sure.
Yes.
Awesome. So both kids in college, that means, are you an empty nester right now? There's no one at home or what?
I am an empty nester. This is the first. Whoa. My younger son is a freshman this year. So yeah, that's quite the adjustment. I don't like
I'm an empty nester too. I'm an empty nester. I don't know. I have all my kids' stuff here. I'm not allowed to move it, touch it, get rid of it. So I'm just charging them storage fees now. That's
exactly. Right. Kind of offsets college costs.
Yeah,
not really.
It's like a little side gig that I have on the side. I like that. It's good. Well, enjoy the quietness of your home, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit of freedom there too. Right?
It's true. I can just drop and go if I want to. So that's kind of nice. Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing I noticed is that there's the food that I put in the fridge stays in the fridge.
In the
cupboards. Yeah. Stays in the cupboards. Like I'm not tackled while I'm carrying the food from the car to the house, and all of it's gone before I even get through the front door.
And my house is clean.
What?
I know. There's no socks on the ground. There's no tripping over shoes and backpacks. And I mean, that's towels on the floor. Yeah. So There's something to say about that.
And if your kids are listening to this, we miss you. We miss all of the mess and the clutter and the noise.
I do.
Yeah, we do. Okay, just in case. I want to get that in there. Good. Awesome. So, Tami, where are you located? Where do you live?
I live in Colorado. I'm just outside of Denver, towards the foothills. So,
nice.
Yeah, I'm
awesome.
a Colorado native. We moved around a little bit. My dad was in the Air Force, so lived in Italy and Alabama, and then back to Colorado. And then I left after undergrad to go out to California because I fell in love and I thought that was it. And then 6 months later, that ended. And then I stayed in California and got my master's. And then I ended up back in Colorado because I love it here.
Okay. Good. A beautiful place in the world. It's gorgeous there.
Yeah. Have you been here?
I have not been there, but I have friends who have. And just such a beautiful place. And everything I see online, I'm like, it's on my list. Definitely on my list. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Amazing. Tell us a little bit about your podcast. Let's start there. Unguarded Mind podcast. What's the podcast about? Who's listening to the show?
We like to keep it open and have our guests on that can really connect with anybody. It's about life is just messy and sometimes gets super overwhelming. And we like to have people on who are willing to talk about things that they've been through, how they overcame it, and what they're doing now to move forward in their life. So really, it's anything. It's we don't really have any boundaries on that. It's people who've been through really tough relationships or tough growing up or dealt with addiction. People who have started a business and just the difficulties of getting your business off the ground and staying motivated and connected. So yeah, it's just we're pretty open and just talking about let's get the word out there, mostly that you're not alone in whatever you have going on in your life, and talk to a lot of people who offer validation to our listeners that life does get kind of out of control sometimes, and it's possible to get your life back on track.
And people listening to our conversation picked up on the word "we" mentioned there often. Tell us about your co-host on the show.
Desiree Grimaldi. So Desiree and I started the podcast. She is actually my my VA marketing person who helps with SEO, SSO. I don't even know any of that stuff. That's what she does. And we've worked together for probably about 3 years, and over the course of time, we formed a great friendship, and we'll just sit there and banter about different things. And she and I one day were like, we should try a podcast, So we did, and it's so fun. I really love it. I love being a guest. I love having guests. I've gotten to meet so many people. So yeah, we just started it. Again, this is her area. I don't even know how many episodes we have on there. I just kind of show up and do the talking. She does all she does all of the work behind the podcast. Nice. But yeah, so it's very fun. I love it.
It's good. If it was a new listener coming to your show, first time listener, would you tell them to start at the beginning, start at the most recent episode? Where would be a good starting point for someone new?
I think you could go through the titles and read the description and just find something that you connect with. Yeah, because there's definitely a variety. There's nothing sequential about it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Beautiful. Awesome. So I have links to the Unguarded Mind podcast in the show notes. Everyone has to go listen, please. And listen to the entire episode all the way to the end, and also leave reviews and feedback and share it with somebody as well. Let's grow the podcast.
Thank you.
We can do that for you. I love that. Let's talk about your author journey. I'm really curious. As the host of this show, I'm not an author. I've never written anything. But so I'm curious about how authors start. Because to see a book on a shelf, something happened to get from didn't exist to it does now. Where did your author journey begin for you?
So it's long story short, I've been a psychotherapist for 25 years now. And I even just going back before then, I am someone who, I don't know, good, bad, right, wrong, have things planned out pretty well. And so it doesn't always go to plan. Life hits you with different things. But I just always knew that by the time I was 40, I wanted to either be a speaker or I wanted to be an author. And 40 came and went, 45 came and went, 50 came and went, and then it finally happened. And I started writing a book. I've been, like I said, I've been a counselor for a long time. I've in private practice, and I just started going over the same things with people as far as being available for relationships. People go into relationships kind of blindly sometimes, not really knowing what they want. You're more connecting to people who are familiar, but familiar and comfortable doesn't always mean healthy. And so, you get into the same relationships one after another. And if you're on that toxic path or that unhealthy path, your confidence just takes a hit. And so I try to help people step back from the dating scene and really more so focus on, what do you want in your life? Why are you attracted to these certain types of people? And it really goes all the way back to how you grew up and your family roles and attachment. I mean, really far back. So I help people peel those layers about, I'm not a dating coach. I'm not going to teach you how to flirt. I'm not going to teach you how to set up your profile. I'm going to teach you what it is that those core foundational aspects that you need to have in place so that you're available for a healthy relationship.
Who was one of those inspirations for you as an author starting out, where you're like, I love what that author does, or how they show up, what they write about? Who was it for you that was kind of your inspiration?
One of my favorite authors is Clarissa Pinkola Estes. I don't know if you've heard of her. She wrote Women Who Run with the Wolves. And she's written a whole bunch. Well, she's a psychologist and she's also a storyteller. She's from Colorado. And I found her years and years and years ago when I was in a horrible relationship, and someone had suggested her book, and I just fell in love with it. And she, she just puts her heart and soul into it, and I love listening to her because when Audible, like it wasn't available back then, but it is now, and listening to her voice, but she would tell a story and then she would pick it apart and explain, why we do certain things. And so she'd add the psychology into it, and absolutely love that book. I think it was very helpful for me. And like I said, I knew I always wanted to write a book, but I just didn't know what it was going to be about. And so, yes, she's one of my favorite authors. Yeah, you should check out her book. She's got a bunch of books. Yeah. Yeah. I think she probably speaks more to women, but she can, I'm trying to think, it's really about, again, internal sense of self, building that internal sense of self, not relying on those external factors to make you feel good about yourself, but just really settling into who you are and self-acceptance. And it's pretty powerful.
So let's jump into a little bit more about what you're working on. As far as your inspiration for what you're writing, let's go back to that as well. Like, talk about that more. What kind of sparked you to go, I really want to go down this path as an author, and this is my audience. I really like to know how authors find their audience. That's really interesting to me.
Okay. Well, here I was doing counseling. I'm providing couples counseling. I'm helping people figure out their marriages, and I was going through a divorce at the same time. Mm-hmm. And it was like, all right, just kind of felt like a hypocrite, do as I say, not as I do. And I would see these couples just working together in counseling and learning to communicate and learning to work together and learning to connect and strengthening their marriages. And it was pretty devastating to be on the other side of it, looking at, okay, well, I've got a court date here and I got to figure out a parenting plan here. And I thought, okay, I need to figure out myself. And that's kind of where I started. You can sit there and blame everybody else for what's going on in your life. I'm not a fan of that because ultimately you have to make your own decisions. And it was really eye-opening. I think I show up in my profession to be there and help people and help them learn how to self-reflect. And I don't know, maybe it's kind of like a doctor is a worse patient because they don't take care of themselves. You're always taking care of everything else, and everything is so crystal clear out there when you're looking at it from the outside. But I really needed to stop and pay attention to what was going on with me and how I was showing up. And so I kind of had, I guess I kind of had myself in the background of just like, here's one aspect, here's one way of growing up. Here's one way of learning how to communicate. Here's one way of learning how to solve conflict and what you're presented with, and you think that, especially when you're little, it's all is what's right there in your household. But as you grow up, especially as you become an adult, you have a choice whether you want to repeat that stuff or whether you want to learn how to do something different. And so, that's where I guess that's where it came from. I just started with all my sticky notes all over the place, and I had different color coordinated sticky notes about how I wanted to put it together and how, and I just remember starting with like a blank slate and just adding in pieces of what I was learning from my personal life, but also from my clients. I'm always learning from my clients. And I guess that was the inspiration of like, I don't want to do that again. I don't ever want to go through that. And I had to figure out how I needed to change to show up differently in my own life. Being a role model for my kids, I think that was a huge aha. Was, my kids are watching me And I've got 2 boys, so I'm responsible to teach them how to show up in relationships and how to treat women and how to treat your partner and how to, be compassionate. It was really important for me to shift that around for them.
I know in podcasting world, we spend a lot of time and effort trying to figure out who our listener is so we can create a podcast that serves them as a listener.
Yes.
Curious from an author perspective, how much time did you spend investing in figuring out who your reader was so that you could write to help them?
A lot. Yeah. I think the thoughts of writing the book started 2 years before I even got my sticky notes together. So, I think it's people who, I work with a lot of people who are lonely, and either lonely together or they're lonely alone. And I think that, people would come in and talk about how disconnected they are from their partner and how, they wish something would change, but nothing was changing, or they're not really sure. They can't put their finger on why they're lonely. But I think it's, my scope kind of expanded, and there's a lot of really lonely people on there. Like go into any kind of social media group, Reddit, Facebook, whatever. And I think people long for a connection with other people. I mean, there's all kinds of studies about your levels of anxiety and depression can increase if you're alone. Not saying everybody needs to be in a relationship, but you've got to have connection with people. And my book is specifically about being in a relationship. But if you think about all the relationships that you have with your family, with your neighbor, with your coworkers, with you've got relationships with everybody, and really intimacy is the thing that separates a romantic relationship with your neighbor or your family members. Or so you still have to learn how to show up. And people, I think a defense mechanism when you're lonely is to be guarded, or to, kind of push people away sometimes, or glom onto somebody. There's the 2 extremes. And neither one of those extremes are going to be helpful in building relationships. So I guess back to the audience is like, I don't know, people who are having a hard time building connections, and people who want connections with people, but they're just not quite sure why it's not working for them.
It's interesting. As you're talking about this, my wife and I watched a movie last night, A Man Called Otto with Tom Hanks.
Oh, yeah. That's so good.
And it's like he's modeling what you're talking about. He's lonely. He's missing his partner. But all these people keep getting in the way, causing him to have to then help others, which is annoying to him, it seems like, in the moment.
Yeah.
But that's the relationship side. So he's almost pushing against having relationships because he's at that spot in his life, without giving away the movie. But it's just interesting how people just keep coming to his doorstep and redirecting his thoughts in that time of loneliness.
That just gave me goosebumps. Yeah, I love that movie. That's so perfect. And it's fear. It's scary to get vulnerable. And people who've been hurt before, you don't want to get vulnerable, because who wants to get hurt again? Who wants to sign up for that? But then on the other side, you long for this connection. And so I think that, there's just a lot of that going on. And I want to try to, I went through it, I don't ever want to get divorced again. That was horrible. Yeah. And so, I'm probably in the healthiest relationship right now. But I knew what I wanted. And I knew that I had to put that guard down, that defense, and again, show up differently.
And I think, too, as listeners, as we go through life, we're going to come across people who seem lonely, seem kind of to themselves, back again to that movie, where they almost seem like rude, that they're so into themselves, or they don't want to be around people. But there's a story. Maybe there's a hurt there that they have never expressed to anybody, but they just seem to an outsider like, well, that person's just rude. I don't even want to hang out with that person or be around them because they're just so negative. But they could be really just falling apart inside and be so lonely. They feel like nobody. So then there's a break there, right? Yeah. Where no one's reaching out to them and they're not reaching out for help. And that gap gets wider and wider. So maybe we can address that through your book, your podcast, all those things, right?
Yeah.
Try to rebuild that.
And I think that there is that perception, in it with somebody who comes across as being really angry or mean or negative. The more they push people away, it just supports their perception that people are horrible. And so then, and I guess that's kind of like life. Like you go through life and you find things that support what you think, because what you think is what you know. It's like your perception is your reality. And so then it just supports like, I'm a horrible person. Nobody wants to be around me. I can't do relationships, and so then you just live your life like that. So yeah, you're right. Like breaking those almost irrational beliefs that you have.
Yeah. So, okay.
And learning about other people. Yes.
Right.
Everyone's got a story. Yes.
Everyone has a story. We need to unpack that. I think that's something we need to do better at, really. So take us through your writings. Like I can see I'm on your website as we chatting, healthyhealing.net. Everyone should go check it out. But in here I see listings of your writings and some courses and things as well. But kind of take us through your website and some of the resources we're going to find on your website.
Okay. So, yep, I've got my book, Preparing for the Jungle, Avoiding Snakes and Pitfalls on the Path to Healthy Love. That's the book. And then I also have an online course. Some people like to read. Some people like to be taught. So it is kind of a workbook. So there's, I've got downloadable worksheets for you because I really believe you've got to do the work. You can read a book and then it ends up on your shelf and you go, oh, that was a lovely book, but then you don't implement anything that you're learning. So there are worksheets and videos that go with each module. And then, yep, I've got a bunch of articles that I've written, again, thanks to Desiree. She has all that stuff up there. And so I'm not totally sure all the articles that she put up there. I haven't on my own website. But yes, they are a variety of articles. I also work a lot with people with anxiety. And anxiety is, I don't know about in Canada, but in the United States, we're going through a lot with, you name it, everything from politics to safety, security in your space. And I think that anxiety is pretty rampant throughout probably the world, and it's a horrible feeling. It can just keep you stuck in the ground. For moving forward, anxiety is detrimental to figure. Well, I guess I look at anxiety as it's not about managing the situations around you. It's more about learning how to manage your anxiety symptoms. And I think once you learn how to manage the symptoms, life becomes a different place because you can't control situations around you. You can control how you show up and how you manage it. So that's my newest book that's going to be out in January.
Great. So go back to Preparing for the Jungle.
Yeah.
The subtitle there, Avoiding Snakes and Pitfalls on the Path to Healthy Love. Can you identify for us some of the snakes and some of the pitfalls that you kind of talk about?
Sometimes you're avoiding the snakes that are out there in the world, but sometimes you're the snake. So you have to.
Wow.
Yeah, you can be your own worst enemy. And if you don't do that self-reflection and recognize how you're showing up, sometimes you're the snake.
Okay, somebody told me a long time ago, if somebody has a problem with you, to some degree, are part of the problem.
100%.
And I'm like, wait a minute. And it could just simply be that you're on the road driving and you're in front of them and they're annoyed. They don't know who you are, but they get angry with you. And I've never met this person. And they pull up beside you and they get all angry and they screaming at you and stuff. You're like, who are you? Right? You could just be in the area. That could be the only problem, but you're part of the problem in that moment. So just understand your part, maybe, so that you can respond better, maybe, in the moment. That's one thing I've always kind of kept to myself, because I know there's times where I could overreact when somebody's getting angry with me, and I don't know why. I don't know, again, to that movie again we talked about. Yeah. I don't know why that character is getting angry at this person in the moment, but I could then react to that anger and then be part of the problem myself and make it worse, right? So we could be our own snake then, right?
Yep, exactly. And without having that self-reflection, again, you have no idea what's going on with the other person, and how you respond to it. You're either going to be part of the problem, or you could be part of the solution. What if you turned around and you said, like, "Oh, I'm sorry," or you waved, or to the person who comes up to you. If you're going to be part of the solution, possibly. I mean, they might go on and feel like, "Oh, I shouldn't have flipped that person off," or something, like, "Oh, it was," they apologized. Versus if you turn around and you're like, "Wow, what's up with you?" and you flip them off and you start yelling, where it's just going to escalate. So I think that it is. Everyone's coming from somewhere. And I think we have to have more compassion. Compassion for other people, compassion for yourself. I think that's one thing that's missing in a lot of areas.
And then working with couples and helping them. Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen someone in your conversations with couples that have come to the realization that they might be the snake in the relationship? And kind of how did that navigation go from that point on, knowing that I might be the problem in this whole situation?
It's eye-opening. It's very eye-opening. I've had my own eye-opening experiences with that. And I like to point that out just because I think sometimes people think, "Oh, your therapist they have it all together. They're perfect." There is no perfect. And so I like to just point that out because I've been there, and we've all been there to some degree. But yeah, I think that I help people learn how to validate each other in couples counseling. I don't know. I think it's human nature to go, "No, I have a belief. And if you could just hear my belief, if you could just listen to me, then you'll get it. And then everything will be fine." And so people fight for their position. Here's where I'm coming from, and here's where I'm coming from. But the other person always also thinks that they have the correct position. So it's like, "Well, here's where I'm coming from." So here's, you've got two people talking at each other and it just escalates. But I really try to help people validate and go, okay, let me put my stuff on the back burner. Here's what I think you're trying to tell me. Is this right? Here's what I hear you saying. I don't have to agree with you, but here's what I hear you trying to tell me. Man, defenses will drop in a nanosecond because really we all just want to be heard. We want to be heard. We want to be listened to. So it's kind of that having compassion and that eye-opening moment where you go, "Oh, like, whoa, when I can put my stuff on the back burner, you also have an opinion. And I wasn't listening to you. I was just trying to bowl you over with my own opinion." So I think those are some eye-opening moments for people.
I think in relationships too, that whole listening to speak, where I'm just listening to you so you can finish talking so I can talk.
Yes.
Compared to listening to hear.
Huge difference.
Is very different, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that's one thing as couples, like my wife and I have been married for 31 years. And I don't know how I've convinced her to stay with me this long, but it's working. But just the idea that you can listen to each other and be just formulating your response. You're half listening. But I've found actually that podcasting has been a really good tool to help me learn how to listen with intent. And to be focused. I'm not on my phone with you right now. I'm not distracted by anything else. It's just you and me. That's a great learning tool that you can bring back to your relationships and go, "I'm learning how to listen better because I have a podcast and I'm interviewing people, and I don't want to cut you off. I want to get your full thoughts. I want to redirect your thoughts as you're answering or having a conversation. I'm learning how to be a better person just by doing this."
Just by hearing. Yeah. I love that. Listening to speak versus listening to hear. That's great.
So how do we do better in that in our relationship? If there's somebody listening and they're like, "Oh, Tami, you're talking about my world right now. And I'm really struggling in my relationship. Right. If I had time with you on the couch and myself and my partner can come and sit with you." And this is kind of the basic problem we're having is we're not listening to each other, and there's gaps being created in our relationship because you don't know how to talk to each other anymore. Where would you guide us, and maybe how would your book kind of help us in that way?
I guess in the book, looking at personality types. I mean, again, this goes way back. If you're, oh man, that's such a loaded question. Let me try to simplify it a little bit. I think it's getting outside of yourself. If you feel like you have to say, if you feel it's about you, you're done before you start.
Okay.
So that would be a quick summary. Going back to different personality types and fighting to be heard and needing attention and feeling like I'm always right. Those are different types of personalities, but in relationships, it really, really has to come down to I'm choosing to be with you. I'm choosing to have a life with you. I'm choosing to share my time and energy with you. I owe it to you to let you know that I care enough to hear what your opinion is. And I think that can be really hard when you get defensive and guarded and not vulnerable and scared. And, there's, you're fighting to be heard. And two people can't be heard at the same time. So somebody has to go first. When I was doing couples counseling in the office, I'm all remote now, which is great because I can work with anybody anywhere. But when I was in the office, I would actually have people hold a coaster. And if you were holding the coaster, you were the person validating. And because it wasn't to be condescending at all, but it is so hard. You don't even realize that you go, okay, yeah, I hear you're frustrated, but here's where I was frustrated also. Or, and it's like, oh, validate, I hear you're frustrated, but, and then bam, the defenses go back up again. So I would have like a gong, like, don't stop, you didn't do it, start over again. I mean, really teaching because, and I talk about this stuff all day long and it's hard for me to do too. And it's such a foreign concept to say, no, you're not allowed to say your opinion right now. You can, but not in the same sentence that you're validating somebody.
That but can be a verbal eraser, right?
Yes.
It erases everything that you said before because now it's not about you anymore. It's about me. Mm-hmm. You're like, I hear you, but
yes,
I didn't hear you.
Right. And I don't care what you have to say.
And I don't care.
I'm going to tell you what I'm going to say anyway.
Welcome. You just got the snake status just by doing that. There you go. Tell us more about your newest book. Like, come on, let's talk more about that as well. We can celebrate the fact you have another book coming in the world, but let's go a little bit more into that.
I'm excited. It's called From Chaos to Calm, a 6-step strategy to manage anxiety. And yeah, I think that again, it's about managing the symptoms. I go into what anxiety looks like. I think a lot of times there's these underlying anxiety. In fact, I'm going live in my Facebook group today in anxiety. And I think that we justify a lot, like, oh, I can't sleep at night because I'm just an energetic person, or my mind just races all the time because I'm so busy, and it's like, yeah, some of those are anxiety symptoms where you just can't sit still because your mind is racing. You've got this adrenaline going. So I do a lot of validating about what anxiety is, what it looks like. You don't have to have a full-on panic attack every day to suffer from anxiety. It's pretty debilitating. I think, when your confidence is high, your anxiety is low. When your anxiety is high, your confidence is low.
Whoa.
And so confidence has a huge factor as far as managing anxiety. But when your confidence is low, you're second guessing yourself. You're not feeling safe in your just internal sense of self. Your thoughts are all over. You don't trust your gut feeling, your intuition. So I help, guide you to creating confidence. I think anxiety comes down to two things, really. It's not having a sense of control over your environment, and and you don't have to be a controlling person. I mean, whether you're an infant or you're 110 years old, you still want some type of control over your environment. Yeah. And when you don't have that, it's very, you're dealing with the unknowns. You're dealing with the second part, which is your cognitive process. And so not having control in your cognitive process are two things that make up anxiety. And your cognitive process is the what ifs and the worst case scenarios and that rabbit hole that you can go down. That's just really all creative thinking. And it's eye-opening when you can realize, wait a second, I'm creating my own anxiety. I'm the one who can put a lid on it and get some control over it. Because really it's your thoughts that are taking you in that place. So I've got all kinds of tools and techniques to try to pull that back and gain control.
As you're talking, I'm imagining the driver's seat of a car with the steering wheel and all the pedals, and the passenger seat that has nothing.
Yeah.
You just sit there, and you have to have a complete confidence in the driver as a passenger that they're going to get you from point A to point B safely and not be crazy and make accidents and cause you harm.
Yeah.
So in there, you have to have a lot of confidence to reduce your anxiety in the driver. And if you don't have confidence in the driver, your anxiety is going to go up.
Yeah.
Because now you're like, oh my gosh, what did I just get myself into?
Exactly.
I don't trust this driver in the moment, right?
Yeah.
So
add on a couple of traumatic experiences, add on past accidents, add on all kinds of things that you haven't worked through. And it could be a terrifying experience. And and then you don't want to get in a car. And then you don't want to be on a bus or a plane. And pretty soon you're isolating your house. And then where's your life, your freedom?
And you can substitute that car for a relationship.
Yeah.
You can substitute that car for anything, right? A job.
Yes.
A promotion,
anything,
having children, anything could be that thing where you're moving to the passenger seat and you lose control in the moment.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that's why you can't control these situations, but you can control how you show up so that you can find your freedom in life to be able to experience and live life the way you're supposed to.
So, Tami, talk to the person who has someone in their life that is struggling with anxiety. But in the moment, we love and care for this person in our life, but we don't really fully understand what's going on for them and why they seem nervous, why they seem to be pulling back from social events or being in the world, all that other stuff. But we want them to do well, but we don't know our role in helping to alleviate some of that anxiety. What can we do for that person we love and our children or partner or whatever to help them feel more secure and more confident? What do we do?
That is such a great question. You do not fix. Don't come in and fix. Don't say, it's going to be okay. Don't think about it. Just distract yourself with this. And the reason is because you've got your right side and your left side of your brain. And the left side is your logic and analytical stuff and fact-based. And your right side is all your creativity and emotion. And neurologically, you can't use both sides of your brain at the same time at a high level of functioning. So when you're anxious, your left brain is checked out and your right brain is very active. And so when someone comes in that's not anxious, their left brain is active and they come in and go, no, it's okay. You're not really in an accident. Everything's fine. I'm driving fine. Stop yelling at me. Everything's good, and then, and then here's your fight, and your disagreement because you're going to, in an anxious space, you're going to come out swinging, you're in your survival mode. So, or you're going to shut down, like fight, flight, freeze, people please is a fourth one that's a response. So don't fix, just, reassurance. How are you doing? I'm here with you. We're going to get through this. Help me understand what's going on. Those types of statements can be so much more beneficial. And then the person who's got the anxiety is going to they're going to hear you, but they can't hear you. It's like speaking two different languages, like Chinese and German, like you're missing each other and it just creates more chaos.
Yeah, that makes sense. See? Awesome. And you said that book's coming out in January? Is that right?
Yes, January 14th. So I'm going to probably be able to start doing some pre-orders from my website and on TikTok. And yeah.
Amazing. Okay, we're excited for that. We'll have links to your website, which has everything listed there as well that we're talking about, which is awesome. Great. And people can follow the journey, get their advanced copy through you and everything through the website, which is awesome. So, as well, like we talked about the resources you have there that complement your writings. As for somebody new to your website, is there somewhere we should go to know more about these additional tools that you're providing to us that complement the books?
I think it's under resources.
Yeah. I'm right, you're there.
Am I right?
We have learning courses, I see.
Learning courses, that should be where the book is. And then if you scroll down on the homepage, I think, or under blogs, there's the articles. And I love talking to people. So, I mean, just reach out to me, and that's the best way. There's my email is on there. I think my phone number is on there. Just feel free to reach out. And again, no matter what part of the world you're in, I am happy to work with you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, for the authors that are listening before we go, Tami, there's an author that's here. They're new to writing. They want to share their message with the world like you've done. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to stay motivated. There's something you've learned through the process of writing now 2 books and helping so many people that could help a new author. If I could turn the podcast over to you as a fellow podcaster and talk to a new author, what would you like to say to them to encourage them to get their words into the world like you've done? How could you encourage them today?
Get messy. Just get messy. And I have, those, have you seen those great big butcher block paper, charts where you can flip over the huge piece of paper? And I have one of those hanging up in my living room. And when I started doing, both books, but the anxiety one, I would have one page that was titles, and I'd just walk by and I had a pen attached to it. I just write things down. And then I would have different chapter ideas, and I would just write things down, and it was a mess. It was colors and sections and arrows and circles and that's kind of where I started. I also put out on my Facebook group, hey, if anyone wanted to learn about anxiety, or if you suffer from anxiety, what's something that you would want to learn more about? And then I took all of those ideas and I wrote them down, and then I categorized them into chapters. This was another page on my huge butcher block piece of, chart. I think you just get messy. You decide, what's your purpose? What do you want? Say your book was finished. What do you want to have conveyed? Do you want to, are you trying to help people feel more comfortable in their skin? What would make them feel that way? What are they searching for? So just really kind of starting broad, and then you start narrowing it down. And I forgot to mention this, my editor, Bonnie Hernhill, she's my editor, and she just asked me to help her write a book. And we're going to do a book it's 4 authors, and it's about what holds you back. So it's about, I know, I'm so excited. We're just on the fringes of it, kind of putting some things together. But it's going to be about your confidence and your internal dialogue and what holds you back from writing your book. The fears, the self-doubt, the wanting to make everybody happy, and kind of putting all that, just really getting into what do you want? What are you trying to convey? And just start writing. Yeah.
Okay, so I got to ask, when that book is ready to promote and talk about, would the 2 of you come on and talk about that book in the future?
Oh, that would be so fun, of course.
I would love to have you both come on, and we can kind of unpack that for the audience and promote that in the future as well. Keep me in mind.
I will. I absolutely will. Yeah, you bet.
Excellent.
Because, you can talk yourself out of anything, but you can also talk yourself into something also. So It's just trying to put that guard down and don't worry about it being perfect. It's not going to be perfect. You can, after a podcast, you can go back and go, oh, I wish I would have asked that question, or I wish I would have dug into that. It's same with writing. It's I go back through, I don't even want to read it because I'm just going to be like, ooh, I don't like that, and I should have added this. And it's never perfect, but it's not supposed to be perfect. It's perfectly imperfect, and that is just fine.
And in a world of social media where everything seems perfect, everyone's showing you their highlight reel and all of their success in life. Don't be afraid to show your messy, right? Show your mess, because there's more people who are going to identify with your mess than a successful result.
Yes.
Because we're all on a messy path to get to that result.
Exactly.
Right? And so for you to take a snapshot of that big chart and all those drawings and scribbles and arrows, I think that would resonate more for me to go, okay, wait, Tami's on the same path that I'm on. I don't feel like I'm prepared or ready, or I'm getting anxious now because I don't measure up to someone else's success. But here's Tami showing the world that here's how I do what I do, and I celebrate the mess. So,
and I celebrate it. And don't use AI. AI will zap your confidence in 2 seconds, you know?
right.
Oh God, you put in like, write me something about this, and it comes up with this amazing thing, and you're like, I'm screwed. I can't come up with that. Forget it. I'm not going to write. So don't use AI. You're comparing yourself to like a robot that's
the world.
I don't even know. Yeah. Stay away from AI. Just go with your gut. Be real, be honest, be authentic, and you can't go wrong.
There you go. Great word standoff. Tami, thank you so much for being on the show. We'll have links to all your information and your podcast and your books and your courses and everything all in the show notes for people to follow up with. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'm going to go listen to your podcast right now and keep listening. So you're going to see some listens in Canada. There you go.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
We're encouraging everyone to go listen to your show and to support you. As you're listening, when you buy Tami's books, please leave an amazing review. So that helps other people to identify that this is the right book for them or for their loved one. Those reviews really matter, and we really want to support Tami as an author. So I'm encouraging you, if you're like, oh yeah, I never do leave a review, there's the perfect example of why you should, so that we can help people in the relationships and all of the things they're dealing with. Tami's got great resources. We need to help more people know about them. So please leave a great review. Tami, again, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. It was so great to see you. I really appreciate what you're doing.
Awesome. Thanks, Tami. Hey, thanks for being here for the Living the Next Chapter podcast. So glad to have you as part of our family of listeners. There's a seat for you just here on Living the Next Chapter, and I'm so happy that you have listened to all the way to the end. Wow, you are now my new bestie. I want to let you know that I host 7 other podcasts on top of Living the Next Chapter. Yep, 8 total. One of them is called the How To Podcast series. If you are thinking, you know what, Dave, this podcast thing seems like a lot of fun. Well, I'll give you a secret. It is. It's a great, amazing, fun time where you can get to meet great people, get your word out there, promote your book, promote what your coaching program, whatever you're doing. Podcasting is great. And if you want to learn how to do this, what you're hearing right now, head over to howtopodcast.ca and look up the How to Podcast series on YouTube, whatever app you're listening on. You'll find me there. And I'd love for you to come listen to how to do this. And if you're interested and have questions on how to podcast, reach out to me at howtopodcast.ca. Thank you for listening. Talk soon.